lectures for the Global Sports Management Program, the course that's going to take place in the 3rd term. So you guys will be near the end of your program, and so we want to have a good and fun and relevant and current program. So we're excited to be teaching it, and we're excited to be here to tell you guys a little bit more about the course. Thank you, JB, before I dive in. Yeah. No? Okay.
I'll let you go. They
All right.
have time. They need to study.
Yeah, so now you guys even have study time.
Exam.
Okay, so
Next week we have time.
So you got some time? Good. Okay, so who should attend this thing? Okay, how many of you love sports? Hands up. Oh, great. Oh, see, this is good. We've got practitioners. How many of you, so you love sports. How many of you play esports? Like video games, esports, yes? Okay, good. How many, obviously if you love and play sports, you already know that people are crazy about sports, but how about understanding even more the reason why they're so crazy and why sports are so important and ubiquitous to everyone around the world. As well, how many of you want to know about the future of the sports business? Where is it going to go and what's next? I'm sure some of you are curious. Okay, good. And then how about the opportunities in sports? Have any of you thought of working in the industry after your degree? Yes? How many want to work in the business? Well, this is good. Okay, great. Yeah, it's fun. I've been in it. Both of us have been in it for many years. Okay. And then others ideally dream of working in the sports industry. And so both of us have experience in it, which we'll talk about later. But we've actually been able to get people placed in different places. I can't promise that, but certainly we've been able to get people into different roles depending on their skill set and the type of sports they want to join. All right. In terms of, let me just get through. Okay. So what are you going to learn? The key thing we really have 6 key areas that we're going to go through. So I should do this. What we want to do is to take you through, and when you finish the program, you've got in each of those 6 key areas really 3 key learning principles. So think of 15 to 18 key things that you will remember and consider when you're looking at the sporting industry. Regardless of the different sports, there's a similar structure across the different sports. And what we're going to talk about is what is the business of sports and why has it gone, how does it get to a business? Where does it start from a passion? How are sports organized? So, how do people actually go from just playing it casually to turning it into a global phenomenon and global league? How are sports bodies, how are they organized? Because they can be both good and they can also be challenging in terms of growing the sport. How do the sports make money? What are their business models? How are they marketed these days? And how does the sports meeting interact? And then ultimately, what's the future of sports? The future of sports in China. And then ultimately, we'll have a discussion about working in sports and how to get into that industry. Okay, because there's certain ways that one does it. Often they can be actually very non-traditional paths into sports. Okay? And as an example, so what I'm going to do now is just take you through a couple of areas that we'll touch on. So here's one, is the sports business model. Really, when you look at sports, what makes it so interesting is it's a combination of many different industries in one. And that's what makes it both appealing and makes it interesting and has people interested, because there's so many different ways you can enter the industry. So in my case, I was working right in with a sports brand itself. In JB's case, he's worked with a fund that helped put together, both raise money for a fund and then implement some things related to football, like soccer schools and academies. And so there's different ways you can approach it, but ultimately the model usually involves either part or all of these different segments. And this is a very basic model. We'll go into more detailed ones, but just to give you an example, it all starts with the sport itself. What is the sport about? What are people interested in? Why do they love it? Is it something that can be played internationally? Then it ties into, I've got TV, impact of television, which is still important even though the web is rising, but television, web, and then over the top. So you can talk about internet and your devices, but as well OTT. So new platforms so that you can interact directly with the product. And you've got sponsorship. That plays an incredibly large role. How do companies decide on interacting with a sport and athletes? Events, how do you actually go and experience the event live, which is a truly remarkable experience, and that keeps changing all the time. Like we've got some great examples there. Consumer products, how do people get to actually own a piece of the sport? It could be a jersey, it could be trading cards, it could be anything in that space, but how do they actually get to do it from both a fan perspective, or how about using the actual kit that the various football players use, for example? And then PR and social media, how are those linked? And there's actually a blurring of that. So that's an example of just a model, and if you start to think of sports through these lenses, it'll create a much better understanding of what's happening and how to analyze it. So the other thing is to give you an example and to go through a little bit of this. So under the area of TV and web and OTT, the key things in sports are, it's always at the leading edge of technology. And why is that? Because fans want access to it. It's real time. It's one of the last shared experiences we have on the planet, because you can, television shows you can watch whenever you want, but sports and live sports are key. And the key elements of those developments are, this was something that went up years ago in the early 90s, okay? You had AsiaSat going in the early 90s, and then as well, what happened in the early 90s, you had the start of the internet. And then you've now progressed to mobile phones, you've progressed all these things. So technology plays an important part. We'll talk a bit about that. Then the next area, you had the technology that grew. What was happening? You guys may remember, I don't know if some of you may not be old enough to remember this.
You must know that.
What's that? Well, you must, but I mean, you guys, very young, some young, or maybe not even a bit more, but this was the dream team. What's that? Very young, yeah, the dream team. Yeah, so people talk about this as a key moment, because what had happened, you had the number one, the internet had grown, of course. You had the explosion of cable and satellite. Here in Hong Kong, they went from what, 4 channels to 2 competing cable networks. If you guys remember, it was iCable. I don't know, it wasn't even iCable. It was Hong Kong Cable, I think, and then the early days of Now TV. So you had those 2 competing businesses, plus you had satellites, Star TV and others. So all of a sudden, those satellites were allowing this instant access to content. And then what did you have? You had an Olympics where the first time you saw professional players play. This was one of the key moments that started it, and then it kind of grew from there. And so what happened with that? You started to see things, I'm going to focus a bit here on China. You then had people like Mission Hills, just north of the border, create the world's largest golf course. What did they need to do? They needed to put content in there. So how did the content interact? These are, you may know the Chu family, and so they started, this is an example more recently, but they started, they did a couple things. Number one, they really helped develop Shenzhen and Dongguan and put it on the map. They had to build infrastructure so you can see sports as part of social change. And then they started to grow the game and the sport of golf. So that was a key change, right? Then you had Beijing Olympics. Massive, massive moment for China and the growth of sports in China, because you had all the world's athletes come to play, as well you had all the brands. And typically in Olympics, we can talk about Olympics, you have 10,000 athletes, but what do you have? Also 10,000 people. What are they doing? They're all the marketing people. They're all the brand people. They're all the sports people, the sports tech people. So those are huge events. This one for China was massive. It really changed China. It was almost like this, there'd been this huge growth in China, and all of a sudden, boom, now we're going to tie in sports. And then what resulted from that? Well, you had women like Li Na, who actually was interesting because she went and became, she actually was the first example of an athlete who split a bit with the system and said, I'm going to train myself. If you recall, her husband is her coach. Well, that was a huge shift. And then what's the other thing that matters? Local stars. And so she's won the first Open as a first tennis major as a woman from China, which was significant. This other person you may know, Yao Ming. So Yao Ming was a key change as well. Early 2000s, about when he was drafted, and then of course as he started to grow and really grow the game. So those were huge shifts, and you'll see the result. And then more recently, this one's interesting, is JB actually reminded me of some interesting comments here.
No, we need to upgrade that slide.
That's right. This is version 1.
Yeah, this is version 1.
As soon as possible.
We are talking about history there. You saw Yao, you saw...
Yeah, we are enough fast, so...
No, that's right. That's why we had the first part, the old, we were talking about history. Yeah. This is, history that was a year ago, a year and a half ago. Things are changing very fast.
Yeah.
In that industry, that's why, of course, we'll take pieces of history, but what we are here to give you is vision. Because that's what if you care about the industry, whether you do you do finance, you do marketing, whatever, what you want from people to teach you is vision and a way to look and understand the principles for you to build your own vision later on.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, JB's right. So when we went through this, he went, oh yeah, gone, relegated, Asset Villa, and my former boss used to run Asset Villa, right? Yeah.
MP, just one of the biggest media agency, already bankrupt, like 3 months ago. Gone. They were sold before.
Yeah.
This the food they are in trouble right now, big time. with their relationship with Wolverhampton. And then Atletico, they already sold the equity stake. Villa, they are struggling in the championship relegation. AC Milan deal is gone, and Inter Milan is he just gave the team to his son 3 weeks ago. So it's changing very fast, and it is like barely a year and a half ago.
And then you can even look at FIFA. You know, what's been the impact of Chinese brands on FIFA? It's been massive, right? Look who was advertising the last World Cup. So it's this key that is constantly changing, and that's part of just this is just a little mini snapshot, but you get the idea and where we're looking at. So one of the areas we're going to talk about is new sports, and that's one of the areas that I found the most fascinating more recently, because you have these sports that seem to come out of nowhere, and boom, all of a sudden they're getting millions of followers. Millions and millions around the world. And that's also where there's future opportunities. Like, think of the sports that you guys could be part of that may not even be invented yet or haven't even been monetized. So I'll take you through a few examples. Let's look at UFC. So you guys, I'm sure, are familiar with UFC. Just coming into China, they had a huge event. They're doing a huge event in Shanghai. What did they do here? And this will be, by the way, we're just giving you a quick snapshot in terms of going through and explaining something, but there's definitely going to be a lot of questions. So what do you think these guys did to make money and make this lead? What's the number one thing you think they did? What did they monetize? They monetized what? Or they codified what?
Betting.
Betting, well, there is some betting, but generally more so, what did they do with the sport? How did they get that sport to the next level? What did they do? Sorry?
They broadcast it.
Yeah, definitely broadcast. So what do they do in this sport? This is an interesting sport because they do what? They box, they kickbox. Kickboxing is good. They do Muay Thai. They got the elbows in there occasionally. They have they do wrestling. They do jiu-jitsu. So what do they do? They combine martial arts. Yes, mixed martial arts. And what else? They monetized it. So all of us know people that probably did judo or karate or studied martial arts, but they would have those smaller events, competitions. This is a global monetization of martial arts. So that's one. So let's go to another one.
Yeah, when you think about martial arts as being a sport, since, I don't know.
Forever.
I won't even be able to tell you, but before that, nobody monetized it. And this is very recent. If you look at the history of the world of martial arts in every civilization, especially in Asia, martial arts are so present. But before that, nobody monetized it ever. So opportunities are like they were in front of the eyes of everybody for decades, and nobody saw that, nobody did it, and they made billion-dollar business with it.
Yeah, they sold it for $4 billion to IMG. So that's one. How about this one? You guys know this one, T20 cricket, right? So what did they do? They took a gap in the schedule and they brought in the best players in the world, and then they put it into a league now worth billions of dollars, which we'll talk about this one and why it's sustained. One interesting question is in the second year, this league actually moved out of India and went to South Africa. So we're going to talk about that. Most leagues couldn't go and do that. It's fascinating. It's a great case study, and it's continually changed and it's revolutionized cricket. And then from that, people are looking at other formats. How about this one? You guys recognize that? That's Hong Kong Stadium. The Sevens. So remember the Sevens. So about 25 years ago, they started to get more and more attention around sevens. It's eventually become an Olympic sport. Again, that has, in a way, developed very quickly. And the sevens became a sport, but not 15s. So that's unique, right? And we're seeing other formats come in. So there's lots of change. How about this one, Kabaddi? Okay, we're talking about what did they do with Kabaddi? Do you know Kabaddi?
Who knows Kabaddi here?
You guys know? Okay, so Kabaddi, what did they do with Kabaddi?
Two teams. You go to the other side, Kabaddi. You have to say Kabaddi, Kabaddi, Kabaddi. And the other side have to pull them in.
Yes. And so what do they do? They tackle each other until, wait, I'll go to the picture. They tackle each other until there's no guys left, right? It's elimination. It's kind of like Red Rover and tag. Yeah. So, and there's a scoring system. Okay, this thing's worth $250 million, and the championship that I just showed you, they did a global championship, in 2016. They had teams from all over the world. And the leading team right now, I think, is from Iran.
Yeah. This is the first World Cup.
That was the first World Cup. So that's in less than 2 years, it's worth $250 million.
Yeah, and it's growing super fast, and already guys players making close $1 million into just practicing that sport that some of you have never heard of, and it's like codifying a game that people have been playing for. Maybe you tell me the history of Kabaddi behind, but decades or centuries into it. So it's new things come up from different parts of the world. So opportunities are everywhere.
Next one. How about this? You guys hear, League of Legends? Anybody play League of Legends here? No, one. Good. Two.
Because he's from Korea.
Are you good enough to play?
This is too young.
This is too young, okay. Well, they do say the peak age is 24, which, I mean, God, if life's over at 24, we're all in trouble. But no, the peak of a player is about 24, 25 years old. So this was the recent championship in Korea, World Championship. Guess how many people watched this event? Actually, let me go the other way. You've heard of the Super Bowl in the US, the big event. It's the world, it's the US's largest shared event. They get about 110 million viewers out of 350 million. So 110 million viewers. How many do you think watched this one live? Does anybody know?
At peak live stream, last weekend, how many millions of people do you think were watching?
Billions or billions?
How many?
And we tell you Super Bowl, which is an event that the world knows is 100 million.
So guess.
Million, not billion.
No, not a billion. That'd be good though. That'd be fun.
Not yet.
No, a bit higher. So maybe
500 million.
it's a bit high. About 210 million, I think it was, right? 210? JB? 210?
Yeah, 210. 202 million at peak, live at the same time. I mean, now you are talking about an event that drags more eyeball than the Super Bowl, where we know, you know how much the commercials are sold? The 30 seconds during the Super Bowl? You must have heard that if you're interested in some business and someday with any companies, you need to know those are reference points that everybody needs to know, because it's part of any marketing cost, and how now esports are used for any brands in the world as a business now to look at promoting themselves, etc., etc. So when we want to talk about sports and esports opportunity, it's like for every business you're gonna do, whether you may not even go into sports, but now it's dragging so many eyeballs. There is so much political link with sports, with media, with entertainment, that understanding those mechanisms behind what is dragging this is actually a big part of many businesses later on that you're going to be part of. So for me, I call it that general culture, because of course I'm passionate about the industry, because I understand the intrication of that industry into everything we do and in any business that we run, from healthcare to data, to events, media, to infrastructure, real estate. Everything may have a link into sports and media.
Absolutely. And the other one on this, these 210, 220 million eyeballs, you can verify them because it's coming in through a PC, as opposed to a guess of how many people were watching, which was the old way you monitored sports or monetized. Okay, so let's talk very quickly about the future of sports in Asia. So we've got some big events that are coming up. We already had the Olympics last year in Korea, so that was big, and then the next big ones that are happening, and this is rare, to have 3 Olympics in the same region of the world is extremely rare, and it's an opportunity really to grow the awareness and to continue to grow the industry. First one up is the World Cup of Basketball. That's going to be next summer. It's going to be in September. Then we get into Rugby World Cup, which is October, November. That's in Japan, and then Tokyo 2020 for Summer Olympics, and then Beijing in 2022, Winter Olympics. So there's going to be a lot more focus in the sports industry in this part of the world.
And a lot of jobs, opportunities right now.
Yeah, definitely opportunities. And then another one closer to home. Does anybody know what this is? This is CUHK. So this is again an artist's rendition of what they're looking to envision for this sports park, which is going to be over in CUHK. This is going to be a new probably 50,000 seat stadium, and then other smaller stadiums for smaller events. So this will be big as well. There'll be opportunities around that business because they're going to not only they're going to build out the stadium, they'll build out the services around it, and then they'll ultimately need to fill it with different events and activities.
Yeah, tender should be given very soon to the winner of the bid, and it's a $4-5 billion investment to develop that on site. So there will be actually a lot of opportunities there too as soon as it's awarded.
Okay. And then just any, we can go and work through questions at the end, but any questions from what we just showed you, that's like a snapshot. We'll obviously go into more detail, but those are some of the types of topics we'll discuss in the course. Okay? We can go through a little bit more at the end. And then I've got, we can talk about this, our backgrounds. Okay, so in terms of our backgrounds, we should have done that at the beginning, but we thought let's dive in and get you right into sports and live right off the bat. But our backgrounds, I have a sports marketing background. I first started in the industry in 1989, part of the opening of Skydome Stadium in Toronto. Then I was at the Hong Kong opening years later in 94. I then worked for the National Basketball Association, was the first guy they hired in Asia, and then have continued to be, eventually became the managing director there, and have continued to be involved in sports since then. And more recently with JB, we set up the Asia Sports Tech business, which we're going to be working with a couple of leading funds in the sports tech space, both in Europe and North America.
Yeah, my background is private equity, family office, direct investment. I worked across sectors, and I worked a lot in sports, media, some of those clubs you saw there, investments, etc., along that value chain. And yeah, we set up Asia Sports Tech in order to help the development of sports technology companies in the Asia world. So sports technology out of North America, out of the US right now. We start to work also with some out of Asia. And we are working with the two leading sports technology fund right now. Advantage is part of LEAD, is part of the Adidas family office out of Germany. And then we work also with Stadia Ventures, which is a big fund, which is a venture sports technology fund of the US. So those are the two leaders in the sports industry. And working with them is very interesting because they need people like you guys and like us to help them in all the project and all the business they invest in the sports media world. And as you guys know Asia and know Asia business well, there is a lot of opportunities to do things with them, with us. We help to accelerate their companies. We help them, do strategy for them. We help them to, of course, do the M&A side and the investment side, which is more my background.
And even help them sell, because we have experience in bringing brands and building them in Asia. So we're actually working with companies to actively build them in the market, which is great.
We also consult with leagues, with teams, with team owners, with federations on strategies and opportunities and growing opportunities in the region. That's why we always need to be at the forefront of what are the new trends, what are the new sports, what are the new techs, how is the environment going to evolve. And this is, as it's changing fast and the numbers are big, a sport that wasn't existing 3 years ago now has 200 million eyeballs, and every sponsor is going there. Every brand in the world now is going there. They're all looking like crazy. It's insane. If you look at sponsorship deal in esports, every day you have like 10, 20.
Well,
The
like
amount of money
McDonald's,
driving that industry is insane. And then you have all the betting industry that is shifting. You have a lot of interesting plays around. So it's very passionate. I mean, it's very interesting industries that moves fast, where there is a lot of business, a lot of money to make, and a lot of good opportunities.
That's great. Okay, so that's just our quick summary, because we know you guys are busy, but any questions related to what we talked about or questions about the course?
The date of the course
Yes.
are flexible?
No, that's the one, it's May 11th and 12th, and that's the set date. Yeah, so it's just 2 days.
Set by the university.
Yeah, set, yeah.
Because from my perspective, this is only one problem, only one issue, because I would like to take the course, but like with other courses, and it's the same problem for so many students.
Okay.
So maybe if there is a possibility to talk with the MBA office, we change the date.
I mean, if it's
beneficial for everyone.
If it's a request from you guys, definitely on your behalf, I mean, we can propose, we can say some people want to attend but it clashes with the course. We definitely can propose if it's a request from you guys.
This is a great course, so
Okay.
there is no reason to have clash with other courses.
Yeah. I mean, as I said, it's good you pointed out. We have no idea what's your schedule, what is scheduled at the same time. This is not our job, but we're happy to push that inquiries and work on that,
Yeah.
see what can be done. We're flexible.
Okay. Yep.
How we pass the course? Exam or?
Yeah. So I actually brought that. Oh yeah, I gotta be prepared.
We skipped it for you to see if you're
Well,
paying
okay, so
attention.
first off, we recognize it's, this is gonna be the stretch run for you guys, right? This is like you're getting right to the finish line, so we want it to be you'll have all this knowledge in your head, so you wanna combine that knowledge, which will be fun. This is how we'll do it: attendance and participation, clearly being there and being involved. And I was running Ivey's executive MBA program here in Hong Kong, and I come from a case background, so we'll definitely be doing cases. We want it to be interactive. There'll be ways where we can ensure that there's, it just keeps it interesting for everyone. So that's 40% will be there. Group presentation, we'll find a couple of key topics that people will go after, and then an individual assessment and assignment, and we're just working through that. So, the key thing is we want it to be, I think you'll find it interesting because it'll be very interactive, and that's a key part to it. And obviously with things like this, interactive and interesting courses are a lot easier to go through. All right?
If you have some suggested time that you have that could suit some of you guys that you could agree on, maybe it could be even easier to propose that to the MBA office and tell them, some students requested maybe a change to this or that day. Would you be open to? No problem.
Yes.
It's very nice for FUT to have this course introduction, so it is not very often.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
Well, we're happy to take people through it again.
So one question for me is that do you have any minimum student enrollment requirement in order to get your course through?
Yeah, there is a minimum. We have to double check that number, but I believe it's something.
Yeah, every class has a minimum.
Yes.
I think it's 12 or 15, I think, but don't quote me on that.
Because otherwise, because today maybe 15 is just right. Because I heard there's this. I know there are some classes because they do not hit the minimum number and they got postponed. Because it's such a big class, and then if there's not, then maybe we can do sport clubs. We can mobilize people.
Sure.
Yeah, that would be great.
Because we would like to have to see this class whatever in that day or in another day in this term.
Yeah.
In this year, I mean, because otherwise
this year,
No, would be great. Would be great to do.
So please also double check, and then we can get back to our presidents on sport club.
Yeah.
And we can mobilize people to make sure it got.
That'd be great. Like one of the reasons why we came today was just to give you a feel for it, right? And I know, from my background working with the university, it's more like, okay, here it is, and then the mystery starts. But that's why we're here.
So you have
just to let you know what
courses,
it's like.
but then you end up on having classes like.
Because last year I got another favorite design course, but it's got cancelled because this is not the minimum requirement.
Yeah.
It's really bad for me.
Now we had this in the past too. I mean, I came here. I've been in Hong Kong for more than 10 years or so. So a little bit here in town, and I studied in another universities in Hong Kong. And you have some, you see the detail because that looks good. You sign up, you go there, say this is not at all what I
This is
thought.
a business school.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But then for me, we started to do that because one, we're very passionate about, and we like to share it. Otherwise, we wouldn't do that. And second, I would have loved to have those courses. But now, fast forward 10 years, the industry, there are business opportunities here, real one. I mean, to be very, very honest with you, the opportunities we are talking with the funds that are there, these are discussions that are happening right now on a daily basis. It's not stuff that were 3 years ago and we started it. Now the need is now. So if you like it, I think there are opportunities to be part of. And if you are keen on learning more and understanding more, like we all do, everybody that plays, that bets, that do something, want to be part of charity events related to sports or community sports, everything is linked. Some days you will learn it today, maybe you will do some other stuff for some time and then go back to it because you like it. So you can understand an industry and look through it with a prism that is very different. And this is what I like to give into classes and what I like my professors, whatever, give to me. So if I can share a little bit of that with you, we'd be more than happy.
But yeah, so definitely propose some time that would work if you look at your schedule.
Thank you.
that makes sense. We're pretty flexible on that. It's just we just need to make
Can
sure.
we send an email to you or to the office?
You know what? I think the first step is just get it. You know, let's try to figure out if there are some dates that make sense. So maybe there's a group of could be. It probably should be. I'm guessing more weekend because as well they're offering it as well to the part-time students. So if you know any of those students and there you go. Okay, so that's helpful. But any if there's any of those students that want to do it, and then as well we will send out some info again on a broader scale so people can.
But we can also exchange information now, and maybe with Avenab we can coordinate on the dates, etc., etc. And then we're more than happy to do whatever may suit you.
Yeah, that's how to get in touch with us as well.
So thanks for your time, guys. If you have any questions now, you can come talk to us. If you want our details, if you will need the phone number, you can come and give it to you.
But it's great. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a great course, and it applies to so many things that are happening these days that
every day
it'll just be fun, and
just,
especially this time.
Even just around you, over there you have Hong Kong Jockey Club. Yeah. Over there you have the Hong Kong Sports Institute. Hong Kong Jockey Club is one of the biggest sports institutions in Asia or in the world. Yeah. I mean, I guess the size of. Do you know the revenue of Hong Kong Jockey Club, just to give you an idea of the size of the business? Because you're a business student, right? Now you should know, if I list you 200 companies, you should be able to tell me what's the turnover market cap of all of them, just to have an idea of general culture of businesses. I mean, maybe it's the finance background that gives me that, but it's always a good way to seize the sizes. It's $30 billion US.
That's huge. Yeah.
Profits of 2.2.
For a businesses that runs twice a week.
Yeah.
For on only 2 tracks. I mean, 1 track per week. One track per day. 1 track on the Wednesday and 1 track on the Sunday. So only 2 tracks. So 8 races. So 16 races per week. So it's nothing. And then it's interesting to look at every business model, every opportunities we have into that. The development of the Greater Bay Area, the intrication of the sports within, the development of the community between the different teams, the different sports. There will be interesting moves around it. And anywhere you are around the world, whenever you go back to work after, or in different continents or whatever, whether in Europe or US or other parts of Asia, there will be opportunities to do crossover businesses between here and where you are. So, and people will be looking for those knowledge because they would not have, nobody would have shared them the keys to read the industry, where we hopefully can give you those keys.
And the last question, what about the group presentation? So the topic will be assigned from you, or maybe we can bring some new ideas?
We'll probably keep it fairly general. In terms of that area. I mean, one of the, what I found is that what people are most interested in, they're going to be passionate about and work on, right? So that's it's a key area. So we want you guys to be excited about the topic and learn something from it. And in some cases, maybe you can apply some of your learning to real world, which would be the best, right? So we have to we're still working through that, but it'll be of that nature because we want to keep it interesting.
Yeah, we have a lot of topics. We have also real life case study that if you want with real businesses right now that are in need of solutions. This is to see if you're sharp or not at the end of your MBA. So we can work on those cases, on those businesses too, on those projects. We don't give you when I went to class and I see someone talking to me about a company about their 30 years ago in a case study that is so old. It still happens in classes. I hear complaints very often from students in different courses. This is not what we do, and if the responses make sense, I just share your contact to the CEO of the company and you have a shot, period. It's as simple as that. So that's what we like to do.
I'm very interested with Asian sports tech.
Yeah?
Is your company does marketing and sales, or you focus on education, like over class?
Yeah, so essentially what we do is we look at helping bring in technology companies from Europe and North America and bring them into Asia and build them here. As well, we're working with the sports tech funds, so we're looking to fundraise money for those funds in both North America and Europe. We also work with leagues and federations, so for example, and teams. So for example, if a team wants to become more, have more technology, we would actually go in and advise them. I'm working with one team in China, and it's an Asian league is the best way to describe it. And so we're looking at how do we integrate technology with what we're doing. So it's fairly broad, but ultimately it's those key areas.
And the education is just because we like to share these topics, and we believe there are opportunities, and we have a lot of projects, and we will need people also to work with us very soon.
Yeah.
So we are here to, and the industry is an ecosystem. You need to grow here. It's not that big, and there is not too many people, and we know from everybody in the industry there are lack of talents. They are looking for people with an understanding of the industry, with a passion for the industry, and with all those events we showed you, there is plenty of jobs there. Yeah. And when you are MBA students, and if you have a passion for something, you say, hey, I never thought about this because nobody ever told me I could do these businesses, but actually it exists. So this is what we do. Teaching is just to share it and to bounce ideas and to meet great minds like you guys, and we never know. I was a teacher, I was a student like you guys 10 years ago, and I still work with my professors.
No, I'm older, but not that much older.
Some other ones.
That's funny though. Okay, so that's great. Okay, thanks guys.
Thank you.